Imagine how amazing it would be to enjoy watching TV and shows in another language, or connecting with native speakers and learning about their culture. And what if I told you could do all of that without picking up a textbook? I'll show you that learning a language is something that anyone can do, even if you hate studying. I'm going to explain some general principles you need to know and then walk you through how I would start a new language, so you've got some more concrete examples of how you might want to approach it. Oh, and for anyone new to the language learning space on YouTube, the good news is that you don't have to learn the same way you did in school anymore. What I will say is that if you have loads of time and fewer commitments, you can totally go all in and do loads of deliberate study. But if you're an adult with bills to pay, the good news is you don't have to give up your job just yet. Clearly, if you have less time, it will take you longer, but if you have responsibilities and feel like you don't have much time, you definitely can still learn a new language. If you've not yet started learning a new language, the main thing is that there's a difference between wanting to learn a new language and actually doing it. It can take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to get fluent in a new language, depending on the level you want to get to. And the sad truth of the matter is that you won't get there just by doing a little bit of an app a couple of times a week. You need to be thinking about trying to do something that is meaningful to you, that you can do every day. So I would say it begins by starting to build some good habits. This isn't one of those things where you totally change your life and wake up by having a cold shower at 4 a.m. every day before going off to read classic literature in your target language. Maybe you anchor one habit to an existing one. Let's say you always have a cup of tea before you go off to work, so why not put on some YouTube videos for learners of your target language? Maybe you have a long commute, and so you find some good audio materials that you actually want to use to make use of that time. These small habits aren't earth-shattering, but over the long term, the effects compound. It's a marathon and not a sprint, and you want to be able to tie the habit into your daily routine so it becomes part of your life. You can do loads more than these simple habits, and over the long term, you probably will. But if you don't have the habit to do something every day, there isn't really anything to build on. I would say start small and easy and get yourself going, and then see where that takes you. So it's no good trying to cram in as much of the language as quickly as possible and then getting burnt out and losing all motivation. You can impress all of your friends by telling them how hard you studied one weekend and how many flashcards you got through, but if it only lasts for 2 weeks, then it's a little bit less impressive. If you don't feel motivated to do something with the language, you'll stop and you'll make no progress. My personal feeling is that it shouldn't feel like such a heavy lift. What sort of thing can you see yourself doing for more than just a week? And what sorts of activities would you genuinely want to do? Comprehensible videos on YouTube are great if they're in your target language, of course. Maybe into reading, and you can find something like Link that helps you pick up new words as you read. I just use the built-in translate function in books on my iPad if I need it, and it's free. Here is where I will say, be careful with some apps that appear to be games. I'm sure there are some good ones out there, but I want meaningful exposure to the language, and sound effects, flashing icons, etc. take me away from simply getting accustomed to the language naturally over time. Compared with reading, for example, most apps are less dense in terms of the words you're exposed to, which would massively slow down your progress. As ever though, it is your learning, and if you like them, crack on, mate. So let me walk you through what I would do if I was starting to learn a new language tomorrow. This would of course change over time as my level in the language changes, but I would want to start just by getting accustomed to the language. There are loads of ways to start, and yours might not look the same, but here is a simple idea if you haven't yet tried to learn a new language. I don't yet know French, but I definitely plan on learning it one day, so my approach would look like this. Firstly, I wouldn't do flashcards. They totally work, I'm not debating that, but if I've only got a certain amount of time, I'd rather just stick with stuff that I enjoy. That said, if you're learning something with a new script like Chinese, it's definitely going to be something that you want to consider. So obviously the word enjoy is subjective, and you need to lower the bar a little when you're starting a new language, but the feeling of the language starting to become more familiar, I would say, is enjoyable. I would kick off my French study by tying it to an existing habit. So I have to walk the dog every day, and so I'd probably just start off with something nice and simple like Pimsleur. Pimsleur is basically an audio course that has this call and response type thing where one person says something in French in this case, and then they say the phrase in English, or vice versa, so you naturally start to try and pick it up. Over time, they repeat the words and phrases that you've heard with this kind of space repetition type thing to stop you forgetting the words and phrases that you've heard. It is far from perfect, but it's something I can do from day one. And because I use English, it will be comprehensible to me whilst I'm using audio only. So by tying it to an existing habit, I could probably listen for about an hour and a half every day whilst I'm out with the dog. I might not keep with it long term, but for someone who knows zero French, it is a start. On top of this, I'd probably do the Story Learning French Uncovered course, simply because I've done the Spanish course and I thought it was a good start on the language. It's an online course that's basically a story with the audio for it as well. And the idea is that you start trying to read from day one as well as listen to the audio. There are videos explaining each chapter, and the more you read and listen, obviously, the more you start to understand. They've got courses for other languages too, if that's what you're interested in. I could then start to put this into my other existing habits. The chapters are very short, so I could easily find time to read through multiple times a day. It has videos explaining vocabulary and grammar in each chapter, so I could watch those with a coffee each morning, again tying it to an existing habit. The Story Learning course also has workbooks with questions and things like that. I don't like doing them, so I will be skipping those. Over time, I will start to get accustomed to the sounds and the structure of the language, but you can see as you're learning, do more of the things you enjoy. Of course, you could find other free resources if you want to save your cash for something else. You can see how learning a language is more of a lifestyle thing rather than a separate activity. Anyone who gets anywhere with a language will usually find time for it amongst everything else they have going on. Anytime I get where I might watch YouTube videos for no reason, I would probably put on some French comprehensible input and learn from Luca about the adventures of Tintin whilst trying to get a natural sense of French. Now, none of that is rocket science, but that is where I would start. I would keep up these habits and slowly find content that is exclusively in French, like podcasts for learners that I can listen to instead. Obviously, I would keep watching Luca's content and pick up words without relying on translations. When I get to the point that I could understand someone talking slowly to me whilst making use of simple vocabulary, I would then go onto italki and start crosstalk lessons. So these are lessons with someone talking to you in whatever language you want to learn, and they'll probably have to explain things slowly or simply, hopefully not use translations, perhaps even draw things out for you, but you would only ever reply in English or whatever other languages you know that they understand. You could obviously do this for free if you found someone on a language exchange willing to do it with you. I love crosstalk. It is an amazing method to acquire a language that is enjoyable, providing you get the right tutor, and it means that you don't have to worry about trying to speak the language from day one if you don't want to. After a while, I'd probably get into graded readers because reading is a fantastic way to naturally acquire vocabulary and grammar without having to think about it. I would probably also watch YouTube videos about subjects I enjoy, even if I don't understand them, because it would just help to keep me motivated and the visual clues might help my understanding. You have to trust that your brain is designed to pick up a language and will do it without you having to try and force it. It does need exposure over a long time though, and you do need to understand enough of the meanings that your brain can start to fill in the blanks. If you understand nothing, you're not learning. Sometimes you have to search around for content where the audio is better or the speaker is more clear in what they're saying, but over time that's less important because your brain is just more accustomed to the language. I already have daily habits, so that doesn't feel like a lot to me, but if you need to start smaller, by all means do. It's about playing the long game and keeping it sustainable. Build it up over time. That all sounds straightforward, and it is. But there is one key mistake that stops people making the progress they are after. Check out this video here to find out what that is and what you can do about it.